it's Coach Tori, and this is Raising Runners. We talk running, fitness, mental health, and so many more topics. As the founder of a youth running program, I approach all of our conversations with our youth athletes in mind and kind of have a focus around those things. But as you will see, we are finding that all of these topics relate to runners and people who like to move and do fitness or anything like that. Relates to everybody. Check it out. I talk with Alison Cooper about Level Up with Alison, which is her mindset coaching for youth athletes. We also talk about some of her other ventures that she has started that help empower youth athletes and just youth in her community. We talk about Sticky Kitchen, and we also talk about Fitgirls. So she shares a lot of her takeaways from doing those things and the things that she's learned and kind of just how it can help our community.
And did you play sports as a young person, and do you do anything sports related now?
So as a youth athlete, I played some of the fringe sports. So I played field hockey. I did cross country running because anyone can do it. Early on, somehow I got this belief in my head that I was not an athlete. I was a little bit smaller as a kid, and I wasn't going to make certain teams at school. So what happened was I started to believe that I wasn't athletic. And one of the reasons why I do what I do today is because I want to give all the girls that I coach and work with an opportunity to reach their potential, and that anyone can be athletic. And so as an adult, I actually learned to ski. So I learned to downhill ski. We lived in Calgary for 3 years and then in Colorado for 4 years. And I got a chance to be on the mountains, take lessons as an adult, and know that I can learn and grow no matter what age you are at. And so I still like to play volleyball. I did play volleyball in high school, but I sat on the bench a lot. So I got really good at cheering. And then I just I played soccer a little bit, just intramurals with friends. I like to keep myself active every day and eat healthy, and that's just part of my lifestyle.
So skiing. Okay. And I'm so interested in skiing, and I have maybe done it like twice in my life, but every time someone brings up skiing, I'm like, tell me about it. So I guess, like, what's your experience with skiing? How hard was it to get into it? And this is like so not even relevant to what I want us to be talking about, but I just want to ask you about skiing. But how hard was it to start doing? And then I guess, like, because you see people, you can go to like a resort and you can do, or I don't know if they're called resorts, but like a ski lodge, and you do like they have little hills, they have bigger hills, but then there's people who do like jumping out of airplanes and doing skiing.
Yeah.
So like, tell me how hard it was to get into it, but then like, where do you see yourself with skiing?
So because I didn't ski growing up, when we lived in Calgary, those are big mountains, the Rocky Mountains. I had a hard time. My husband was like trying to teach me. We put our kids in ski programs because we wanted them to all be able to learn at a young age. And then after quite a few tears and fights with my husband, I ended up signing up with a women's group. And it was really interesting. What I learned from that is just that it's different to coach women, girls, boys. It's applicable to understand that, to be a better coach depending on who your athletes are. And this female coach just got us. She understood like where we had fears and where she could push us just outside our comfort zones to improve. And then there was this one time, so we used to ski at Sunshine, and there was this one run that I used to love, and my husband would be like, this is so boring. Like, why are we doing this run? And then we went back years later after I got better, and and we went down that same run, and I was like, oh, I get it. This is a little boring. So yeah, so my message is just that as an adult, you can learn anything you want to.
So, and I love that, because that is like a big part of at least what we do with Run Club, is really trying to instill in the kids that like, you can do anything you want to, as long as you put your mind to it. There's all kinds of ways to work around what we think is impossible, right? And I'm guessing that probably leads a lot into your mindset coaching. And you have, your business is called Levelup, is that right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
my website is Levelup with Alison, 1l.com. And I created the website and started the business really during the pandemic, because it was a good opportunity when I wasn't able to coach athletes in person. I felt like it was a good opportunity to try and reach out to some athletes. And with living in the US, and then now we're back in Toronto, I can coach anyone one-on-one, no matter where they are, through Zoom. So so I developed a 6-week program and it's specifically for girls, but if a boy wanted to go through the program, that would be fine. Where each week they learn some specific skills that they're going to take away and apply in their sport environment. And so they end up being very much life skills, but the way they practice them and the way they learn them is through sports, because I find that sport is a great place to try new things, make mistakes, have some failures, have some setbacks, and recover from them. And usually kids are practicing twice a week, 3 times a week, depending on their sport. So it's a good opportunity to practice and build those skills over time. So it goes over 6 weeks. We start with first week with a self-assessment, self-awareness. I teach them how the brain works. Was really important to me. I would have loved to know how I need to get to that uncomfortable zone and feel that negative feeling in order to grow. Then we talk about emotions and how we work through emotions rather than suppressing them. And this is really important for kids nowadays, because if they're feeling like I'm bored, or I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling anxious, they just pull out their phone and it's a distraction, but it doesn't make the feeling go away. It just kind of buries it, and typically it'll come out in a moment when maybe they aren't able to handle it, and in a way that's not necessarily the best environment to handle it. So working through them. Then we talk about mindfulness. We talk about self-compassion and having some like downtime, which is important for kids with all the pressures they have. And then the last week we revise all the tools that we've built together, and they have like a toolbox that they can walk away and then refer back to that and use it as they need, kind of through their sport, their schoolwork, wherever.
So after the 6 weeks, is there an option for kids to keep seeing you if they feel like they need some more help with like adding different tools to their toolbox? Or actually, I put that in quotes. I'm not sure if it's a real toolbox or if it's like a mental toolbox.
Yeah.
I realized it right, but I was like, I actually don't know if that's a physical thing. So can they see you after 6 weeks, or is it more like, kind of they move on to something different?
Yeah, I have some follow-up sessions. I have some specific situations where I just work one-on-one with someone, let's say dealing with an injury, or someone who's going to a tryout, and how do they prepare for that. And then, so I have had a few athletes come back. Let's just 6 months later, let's review maybe revise. As the kids grow, things are going to change. So just knowing that they have access to that toolkit, and it's not like a physical thing, but it's generally like some paper or like a little book where something they put on their bulletin board that they can refer to.
And what age group do you typically see? I imagine it could be a broader range of kids. And then, well, I guess I'll let you answer that first. So what is the age group usually that you serve?
So it's typically middle school age. And this may be a little off topic, but when I first started coaching, the first business I started was called Fitgirls. And it was an after school program for girls 7 to 11 that I taught them basic sports skills so that when they went to gym class, they knew how to throw a basketball. They knew how to dribble. They knew how to do those things. So a lot of them would be in an environment with, mixed genders and maybe not feel completely comfortable, but because they've done it before, they could do it again. And the research says that before age 10 or before age 11, it's really easy for kids to learn, the motor skills of kicking and throwing and running and jumping. And so that was kind of the premise there. This premise is more for middle school, is more they're a little bit older and they can understand the applications that I'm trying to teach them about how their brain works and how to reach peak performance and how to manage the pressures. Before that, I would hope they don't have a lot of pressures that they're having to deal with. And then after that, I could definitely work with high school kids, and I have worked with a couple, but it's harder for them to implement some of these things when they're in high school and they're feeling a little bit more on stage when they're performing in their sport.
No, that totally makes sense. And I'm glad you brought up, you said it's called Fitgirls, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I was gonna say, I have it in my notes somewhere that I wanted to ask you about that. So you actually beat me to it and bringing it up. So I love the idea of that too, just teaching girls or, really anybody, but I get the total girls have struggled through gym class. I love that you help them with that. For your level up kids, though, switching back to that, is it like anyone in sports? Would it be someone who feels like they're struggling? Like, is there specific challenges that someone would be facing to then that they would really benefit from Level Up? Or is it really just like every kid who does sports could really benefit from this?
Well, I think every kid who does sports can benefit from it, but really the pull comes from the parents or the kids, and generally there's an issue. They're not reaching their potential because of the team environment or the way they're being coached, or they just feel too much pressure. I mean, anxiety is like probably the number one. I would say number two would be closer to like trying to be a perfectionist and not being able to deal with the failures that you have to have in order to get better.
Yeah, sorry. I keep muting only because there's so many loud cicadas outside today that I'm like, I don't want them to just be chirping over you while you're talking. So I'm like, now I have to fumble with my mouse to get back to unmute. It totally makes sense, right? Like, I think we talk all the time when we talk about like mental health or anything like that, is like, it doesn't have to just be someone who has a specific challenge or is struggling with something. Like everyone, like you started your answer with like, I think everybody could benefit from it. So, I think that is great.
What I really love is to teach the girls that I am where I'm supposed to be in this moment. So there's no judgment in it. There's, that has to be your belief. And as you move forward, we're just looking for small improvements to that, that you can get in every action, every day, every week, as you progress to something some goal or aspiration that you have.
Yeah. No, that is totally useful to pretty much everyone. When you started to explain it too, I'm just like, oh, this is something that I definitely need to be paying attention to, because it's definitely something that I also need to work on. It's like, we all have those things that we think that we just need to slowly start to get away from thinking those things about ourselves. Before I move on to asking you about other ventures, because it seems like you always have a lot of things you are doing. And you may have already answered this partially at least, but you had talked about how, the things we learn and practice in sport relate a lot to our lives outside of sport. I don't think you said it in those words, but I think you know where I was kind of getting at.
Yeah.
Can you just say like a couple maybe of like the lessons either that you teach or just like things that are applicable to sport, but also in real life? Because I am always trying to make sure in our run club that we are teaching them things that they also can take other places. And I think running is like super easy because it is pretty like transferable to a lot of things. But what are some things that you think for sports relate to outside of sports as well?
So I think when we're talking about getting uncomfortable, the physical uncomfortableness, and if we talk about running, you have to get to a point. So I will tell the athletes I work with, if you keep running, if you just run once around the track every day, are you going to get really better? So no, you have to like push yourself. You have to feel that uncomfortable feeling so that you push yourself, and then the next week you're going to be that much faster, or you're going to be able to run that much further. And we have to do the same things with our brain. So we have to get into that uncomfortable space and feel it and push just a little bit harder each time, so that we can take things from and so I have this image that I show the girls where the middle, and you can find this online, the middle is like your blue comfort zone, and then the yellow ring around it is like your yellow growth zone, and then the red is your panic zone. So you've seen this before. So just finding that space in the yellow growth zone is the same that you do when you push your body, you're pushing your mind. So that's a big thing, and it will happen in any time you're dealing with places that you want to improve, that you want to grow and learn. So that should be all your life, I would hope. Sports also teaches communication skills, teamwork, responsibility, resilience. Like, how do you deal with the times you didn't perform as well as you had hoped? Dealing with different pressures based on the level of the competition, and actually becoming more competitive, because we know that a lot of executives that are out there doing really well in the business world and in other places played sports as kids and in university and college, that they learn that competitiveness and they learn that drive, and they can apply it in their jobs now. So I mean, I just think there's so much that sports teach these kids. And so my desire is to get as many kids playing sport and staying in sport for as long as they can, just to realize those benefits that they can have through their whole life.
You mentioned resilience in there as one of the things, and I think anybody who's played sports can really think of like a time that they were knocked down or, really put up against some challenges and overcame. But I think, and I'm trying to picture like middle school me, and we didn't really have that many sports when I was in middle school. So I wasn't really doing any competitive sports then, but I mean, I feel like as a middle schooler, everything is so hard. So I think one of the things about resilience and teaching kids or having them develop resilience is like they actually have to be faced with challenges. They have to kind of be knocked down and be able to pick themselves back up. Do you see that as being something that's really hard for them to learn? Or how do you help them kind of navigate that when it's like things can feel really hard and hard to overcome, or maybe I'm just projecting what middle school me was like. And a lot of middle schoolers don't have, those like, life is so hard when you're, a tween, or I guess like almost a teenager.
Yeah. So, and especially hard now if parents like bubble wrap their kids so that they don't have any of those negative feelings or struggles or setbacks. So I think the best thing is just to help kids work through it on their own, because that's how they build confidence, is working through a challenge and struggling and then coming out successfully in the end. And even though there will be setbacks along the way, you hope over time that the end result is, they do find success, they do grow, and they do get better at their sport or their other activity.
And sticking with the middle school topic, and I feel like as I'm about to ask this question, I probably won't fully even understand your answer anyway, but I'm going to ask. So what is it about like the middle school aged brain that you feel benefits so well? And I think you kind of mentioned this when you said like the high schoolers aren't really at a place where, your program or whatever is really for them, or you mentioned something about the high schoolers being in a different place, but what is it about the middle school aged brain typically that they are in a good spot to benefit from, like the level up coaching or like that, really the mindset coaching?
I think it's the age and stage as well as their brain. So they're more willing to listen to something that an adult has to say and try new things. I think it's just about explaining how the brain works and how it's not fully developed, and your judgment and the way that you deal with emotions. So I'm a little off topic, but Lisa D'Amour, I don't know if you've read any of her books. She wrote Untangled and Under Pressure. And she talks about kids that would come into her office, and she had a little, like one of those jars, like a snow globe, but it's called like a glitter jar. And so it has water and glitter in it. And when kids would come into her office, she's a psychologist, they would be very upset about something, and she would shake the jar up and show them that that's what's happening in their brain. And if you can wait, and I think the average is like 90 seconds, if you can wait 90 seconds and feel that emotion and work through it, and let those glitter or the snow fall to the bottom of the jar, then you're in a different headspace, and you can work, you can have more rational thoughts in the end. So I think it got a little bit off topic. I just feel that from working with a whole bunch of different ages, these kids are just very receptive to try these things at this age versus when they get to high school, and there's more pressures from social pressures and things that are happening in their environment, that it's harder to practice. And if they learn the skills in middle school, they will, I think, use them in high school.
Yeah, and then that totally makes sense. And like, I'm assuming like sports are still structured similarly to when I was younger, and it was high school when, that starts to become very serious, and you do take a lot of what you already thought about sports and yourself in sports with you there. And it just, you don't have as much time, I think, to process and rework things all the time. Not that you shouldn't have that, but I think that's just like the natural structure. So it totally makes sense to, have them get all these skills prior to that, so they come in with like a really healthy balance. So no, I think that totally makes sense. I just wasn't sure if there was like a specific reason that like middle schoolers' brains are just like, pour something into me or something, you know what I mean?
Well, definitely the younger the kid, definitely more willing they are to learn and to accept things, and the easier it is.
Oh yeah. So I guess moving on, I'm sure, knowing me and you've heard me talk now, I will find my way back, I'm sure, to the same topics again, but moving on for now. You also started something called the Sticky Kitchen. Can you tell us about that too?
Yeah, so that happened after Fitgirls, and part of the Fitgirls program was we would do in a session, we would do cooking in the kitchen, and part of the program was sports skills, nutrition, and healthy body image, and social skills. And so one time each session we would do some cooking, and the kids really loved it. And when they got to cook with their friends, I just found that they were more willing to try different things. So I created a camp that we ran in the summer where it was called Fitgirls in the Kitchen. And so each day they would make something that we would bring home for their family for dinner. And it was, everyone loved it. Then we moved to Calgary. And so I kind of shut that down. And I started running with a friend that I met there. And I hated running, and she hated cooking. So we found that if we did those two activities together, we could distract each other from the hard feelings of running for me. And she was so good at running, she would just talk the whole time we were running. And so I had no time to think about, the fact that I was tired, because it was like a constant engagement. And the same for her in the kitchen. And so I started the Sticky Kitchen, and it is all about cooking with friends. So all the recipes on my website, and it's the-sticky-kitchen.com. They're all make ahead recipes that you can prepare, like say in an afternoon or a morning, then you put them away until dinner time. And so this is for moms who maybe would meet for coffee. So instead of coffee, we're going to get together, we're going to make dinner, we're going to be productive, put that in the fridge. I love to be productive. And I also work with kids. So there would be a group of up to 4 kids, because we generally have 4 burners on a stove. And one family buys all the ingredients for that week. You make 4 meals with them. They bring them home and share them with their family, and they're so proud. They're so proud that they made it. They love what they made, even though maybe if their mom made it, they wouldn't like it. They wouldn't want to try it. And they have a good feeling because they were with their friends when they did it. And so the tendency is for them to want to make the recipe again and have those feelings. And then the next week we go to someone else's house and they do all the shop for the 4. So economically it's a little more efficient. And it's just fun. I just love when kids and even adults that don't really like to cook can have the skill of, I can feed myself, I can feed my family something healthy, and they get really proud of it. Then it's cool. And I still hear from them about recipes they make.
I love that so much for so many reasons. And like everything you kind of already said, like, it empowers the kids. They learn how to make things themselves. They're proud of it. They get to do things with their friends. I'm huge on community. And that's like one of the reasons I love running, is because we have such an amazing running community where I live. But being able to have like an eating community and a cooking community like that. I love the idea of that. I'm like now trying to think like, who can I start trying to get together to do something like this? Because I love that so much. And I do have to check out, I have not checked out your recipes, but I saw, I think I saw you on your Instagram. But I was like, I have to check that out because the whole idea of like being productive, like you said, and making things, prepping it ahead of time so that it's just so much easier. I mean, who couldn't benefit from that, right? So no,
So
that
the week you host, it is a lot of work. And the group of neighbors that I do it with now, we only do it like once a month. But the week you host, it's a lot of work, but the 3 other times, if you work with a group of 4, all you do is you show up with your whatever pot or pan or baking sheet that you need to bring your food home. And you don't have to really think. It's a real treat.
Yeah, no, that is so cool. I love the idea of anything else that we can like incorporate bringing other people together is awesome. My last real question for you is, you have 3 kids, right? And I'm imagining at some point you were a sports parent, if not still a sports parent. Can you just talk a little bit about what that's been like for you, especially with, your background and all the things that you've done with like mindset coaching and those kinds of things? Like, how has that been being just the parent of a young athlete?
So I've coached a few teams that my kids have been on, because that's always the way especially when they're younger, who wants to volunteer to do this? But I would say after a certain age, probably 12 or 13, it's really hard to coach your own kids. They need to be told what to do by someone else because you're telling them what to do all the time. So my daughter, who's now 20, she goes to school in Colorado, and she played soccer most of her life and then actually played field hockey when we lived in Denver. And it was really important for me to just support her and support her team. I was a team manager, just to make sure that they had good connection and good friends. And another place that wasn't school, where she had a different group of people, just because there's always friendship issues, especially with girls. And my son is 18, and he's going to university in the fall here in Ontario. And he played soccer, basketball, and ultimate frisbee, and super athletic. I didn't coach much of him growing up, but just like always on the sidelines cheering for them. I just love to watch them play. And I still do get to watch my youngest, who's going into 10th grade, and he is the soccer goalie. So I still get to watch those games and participate in that community.
I imagine being the goalie's mom can be stressful and intense sometimes, or maybe not.
Yeah, you know what? I hear from other parents that it really is, but I don't know what happened. But this kid, he's just super confident, and I do feel bad, like sometimes when there's a goal, that he should have been able to save. But when he was really little, we had this. He played for a bunch of teams where, and he didn't always play. Like sometimes he played net and out when they're younger. I think that's a really good mix. But when he was younger, he played on some teams that weren't so great. And so we had this thing where if he might walk away and be a little deflated because they lost, I don't know, 5-1. But then I would count how many goals he saved. And so if he saved 20 goals, but he let 5 in, then I would say, well, you actually got 15 points in this game today. So that's a win. And so whatever you can do to help your kids find other goals that are outside of the score can support them in finding that joy and intrinsic motivation to, to keep playing when you're in high school and things get harder.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure that possibly could have played, and I shouldn't say I'm sure that possibly, that doesn't even make sense, but I imagine that that has a lot to do with why you said like he's really confident now. Is like he was able to, through your lead, like think of, yes, you let 5 in, but you saved 15, right? So that's like a great way for him to look at, even losing a game.
Yeah, I don't think he'd credit me with anything at this point in time, but we'll see. Maybe later in life.
Yeah, give it like 10 more years and I'd be like, you know what? Mom really made me a great soccer goalie. Before we wrap up though, do you have anything else you wanted to say that I didn't ask? I'm going to make sure I get the links from you to put in the show notes so people are able to find all the things that you have. But anything else we didn't get to?
So there was one thing that I wanted to talk about, and it's just the difference between coaching girls and boys. And so I thought it would be interesting to share. And what their research says is that girls need acceptance before they can put in the effort and achieve that performance. Boys, and I'm talking in general, of course, put in the effort, get the performance, and then achieve acceptance. So one of the really important things, and if you're a coach who's involved in coaching girls, is finding that safe, connected environment so that girls feel accepted, because they need that before they start performing. And so that, as coaches, that creating that environment for them is such an important step in the, achievement of their performance goals.
Thank you for pointing those things out, because I feel like that's been a theme in the past couple of recordings I've done. So it's like a couple of weeks from now that'll be coming out, but a couple of people have mentioned like coaching female athletes specifically. So it's just kind of funny that that's also coming up now as well. So thank you for throwing that out there. So that is all I have. Again, like I said, I'm going to make sure we get the links in there so people know how to find you. And thank you so much for all of your time.
Oh, it was great. It was great to meet you and to spend this time. And it's always good to, to reflect on what you've done and your values as you think about going forward and what new business I may come up with.
Alison again for all of the time and information she shared with us today. Also, personally, I need to thank her for being so patient on waiting for this episode to come out, because if you noticed, I mentioned the cicadas, which means this was recorded when it was much hotter on the East Coast. So again, thank you for that. And I'm glad that she got to share all of her really cool businesses with us. Feel free to check out all the links in the notes. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe, all the things that you can do for a podcast that you enjoy listening to. Make sure you check out social media, our website, any of those things. If you have questions, comments, interview requests, feel free to email me at marikeyrunclub@gmail.com.